I'm Madeline Lombardi and welcome to Western Perspective. More about my debut in just a moment, but first, for many people in Australia, organ donation is a fairly common procedure post-life. Current research has shown multicultural communities are lacking when it comes to education surrounding organ donation. However, the Multicultural Services Centre of Western Australia and Donate Life Western Australia have organised 9 workshops to promote the awareness of organ and tissue donation and transplantation for culturally and linguistically diverse communities in Perth. Here's my interview with State Medical Director at Donate Life WA, Dr. Simon Towler. Just for our viewers out there, can you explain what these organ and tissue donation and transplantation workshops entail for members of the CALD community?
Yeah, so we know that in Australia we need to reach the community to have the discussion about would you consider registering and consider being an organ donor if you die in circumstances where that's possible. We know that in Australia we've got a very big culturally diverse community. And routine messaging through the standard media, mostly in English, is not reaching those people. So we've been really pleased this year and really congratulate the Multicultural Services WA agency because they were the successful winners of one of the Organ and Tissue Authority community grants for this year. And they've been amazing. They've been developing a program, working on a program to train people to take the message out. And so what this is about today is acknowledging and celebrating that contribution. And I've been deeply impressed by what they've been able to achieve.
I want to know, why do you think figures are low or lower than non-CALD members when it comes to CALD community engagement in organ and tissue donation and transplantation in Western Australia?
Yeah, so there's a few things that are important to know. If you're registered on the Australian Organ Donor Registry and you have spoken to your family about your wishes, when it comes to that moment of somebody giving consent for organ donation to go ahead, the consent rate is about 90%. If you haven't had those conversations, then we see a consent rate of only about 40%. What we've got in the call community at the moment is lower registration numbers. Having said that, though, at some of the recent multicultural events, people have taken out their organ donor registration card and shown me that they're doing it, but we need to be able to reach that community more effectively so these conversations can be held. And we're looking to get the organ donor registration rates up in Western Australia, which at the moment are about 36-37% of the eligible population, but we know they're lower in the core group.
I want to know, were there any sort of cultural or religious barriers which were considered when designing the workshops as well?
So we've worked with the multicultural communities so that they set some of the framework around the messaging. The Organ and Tissue Authority has looked at a lot of different cultural groups, a lot of different religious groups. There have only been 2 groups that have been identified who are absolutely opposed to organ donation, and that's largely to do with the idea that organs should not be removed from the body after death. But we respect everybody's right to make a choice. So we're not aware of many groups where organ donation is in fact not acceptable. And we are continuing to work with groups where the donor consent rates are lower. And that includes core communities, but it also includes Aboriginal people. And, they're all a little bit different. Everybody has a right to choose. The community groups vary. Some of the Aboriginal clan groups vary in their views. We need to work consistently with these groups of people so we acknowledge their wishes, we understand their views, but we give each individual the right to make a choice if that's what they wish to follow.
I have one last question for you. So 8 podcasts have been developed, which includes the voices of recipients receiving the organs. So each podcast has been translated into different CALD languages. Can you tell us a little bit more about this and your strategy in broadcasting this message via radio as well?
Yeah, so we work each year around a number of key events, and this week is Saffron Day event. Saffron Day is really interesting because it was actually started by an Indian cultural group in Sydney after their young son died in a bus crash in India and became an organ donor. We've recognised that to reach people we've got to use different modalities, different media. So the development of the podcast in different languages, also hearing the message from recipients. I mean, in the end, the real story about organ donation is the lives that it changes. So we're hoping to use this platform, and that's been developed through the work of the Organ and Tissue Authority and work done here in WA to reach out to new groups of people. We explore constantly not using just mainstream media, looking for opportunities in community, and the podcasts become part of that opportunity to present. And I think they're much more appropriate. Giving a standard talk about what you can expect with organ donation or talking about all the transplants there are is not really getting to the heart of the message. We want to reach people at their heart. We want to understand what they think. And these podcasts are a great way to actually meet people in their own setting. It's a really interesting model in Queensland where they have what are called kitchen table meetings. And somebody just of a cultural group sponsors a kitchen meeting for a day. And things like the podcast can become the platform on which people in small groups can have these discussions, and we're happy to facilitate them. So I'm really pleased by this work. I think we're reaching out more. But when I met with somebody recently at a cultural event, they said there are 200 languages in Australia. We're going to be busy, and we're going to need all these clever people who speak multiple languages to still translate to some of the smaller linguistic groups.
And now, here's AMA WA spokesman Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly COVID-19 update and medical commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. This week I've been travelling for the first time since the start of the pandemic. I'm over here in New Zealand for business meetings and to spend a bit of time with my family. And I must say I'm surprised at the number of people who don't take the simple measure of wearing a mask when they get on an aeroplane, and they're quite happy to breathe in all that air from other people. I was measuring the carbon dioxide levels on the aeroplane that went straight up to about 1,600 from the 400 and something that it should be when you're outside. And this means that you're breathing in a lot of air that's already been in someone else's lungs. So with the rise in hospitalisations in Perth of about 30% in the last week, the large number of cases in Singapore, XBB, and with European hospitals filling up, I think it's time that people just got sensible, and even if you feel a little bit embarrassed at first, you'll notice that there's a smattering of other people around wearing masks who all understand that it's just a really good idea not to get this disease. It's less likely, of course, after you've had vaccination that you'll get severe disease or end up in ICU, although that can still happen. But long COVID is the serious concern if you get repeatedly infected with this. So just a reminder that it can affect your heart, can affect your brain, can cause stroke and heart attack down the track for people. And I'm not saying this to scare people, but it's the same way that we try to talk to smokers and say, you know what, habits really do make a difference in the long run. And the habit of breathing in dirty air when you're out in enclosed public spaces is one that our society is going to have to kick. I'm a bit disturbed to hear the news on WAMN this evening of, unfortunately, a mistake being made in identification of a family when bad news is being relayed. And I don't know anything about that particular case, but I can say that before we do every operation, when someone's in an operating theatre, we always check again and again and again the name, the details, confirm with the patient what they're having done, and never assume that you have no one's made a mistake with the paperwork. So systems need to be improved in order to protect people from this kind of distressing thing happening. Thanks very much for your time.
That's Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. And now a brief weather update. The mercury will stay just above 20 degrees for the next few days, 23 degrees on Monday, 22 on Tuesday and Wednesday, and 21 on Thursday. But here's the most important bit of all. At night time, the weather will remain cold and around 10 degrees and 9 degrees on Thursday night. So remember to stay warm. Before we conclude, I hope you've enjoyed my debut on Western Perspective. You can expect to see my face and stories on WAMN News through our featured and exclusive content in the future. That's all from me. Have a great evening, and I'll catch you very soon. Ivan and Melly, it's back to you.
What a wonderful presentation. Thank you and well done, Maddie. And right now, here's Leo with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys, for making New Zealand 6 News Treasurer Jim Chalmers prepares to make his budget speech amid calls for the federal government to raise the job seeker rate and axe the Stage 3 tax cuts. Labor to consider any proposal put before them in an upcoming censure motion against Green Senator Lydia Thorpe. And nominations set to close in what is the second British Conservative Party leadership race this year. You can see full details on those stories and plenty more on our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News AU to find us, or head to our website, 6newsau.com. For now, guys, it is back to you.
Thanks, Leo, and that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, we wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.